get started. We're a few minutes late. I'm sure Mr. Singh will join us here in a minute. Wanted to bring up Chief St. Noy. He has I heard he should have a copy. He has a legislation that we would like to introduce, and I'd like him to explain it, and then we can ask some questions. Chief, just make sure the red light's on the microphone. Just push the button in the center.
Okay, I think everybody can hear me. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for their time. I understand a special meeting is called special for a reason. That means that you guys have to come in a little earlier or stay a little later, one or the other. And you're all here early, so I appreciate that. You went on your way to accommodate me. The reason that I requested the meeting was so that I could fulfill a need that I think is prudent in the police department. Over the past 18 months, the drastic changes that have happened within the police department are upfront and visible on a day-to-day basis, and they all revolve around staffing. Unfortunately, we are running with a skeleton crew on shifts, and we are working towards fixing that. We are in the process of hiring several people, and we plan to continue that process. With all that being said, one of the things that I have seen as I've kind of gotten accustomed to this role as department head is that we are extremely top-heavy in the police department. Our police department was designed, and it always has been designed to accommodate the backbone of the police department, which is patrol. And then the way that we do that is we put people in positions of leadership that will best suit those needs. We are a much smaller police department today than we were years ago. And so what I would like to see happen here moving forward is I would like to reduce our command staff levels. We currently have 2 captain positions that sit just below chief. I would like to reduce one of those positions and abolish that position through attrition, through the retirement of one of our captains who plans to retire in the upcoming year. And I would like to replace that position with a sergeant. As of right now, both captains and the chief are not members of the union. That is where council comes in. Ordinances set forth the number of captains that we have in the police department. We currently have 2. Like I said, I'd like to reduce that to 1, and I would like to replace that position. There is no lack of lack of need for leadership in the police department, but there is a lack of need for so much leadership at the top, especially for a smaller force. In 1977, the department was designed or was set up with the chief, 2 captains, 3 lieutenants, and 3 sergeants, and 50 patrol officers. In 1988, it changed again. It changed with the times. There was legislation that was passed for a chief, 2 captains, 3 lieutenants, and 7 sergeants, and 44 patrol officers. In 1995, legislation was proposed in 96 and went active for 1 chief, 2 captains, 4 lieutenants. We dropped down to 6 sergeants and 44 patrol officers. What I'm asking for you right now, or from you, is to just simply change this to 1 chief, 1 captain, 3 lieutenants, 7 sergeants, and a patrol officer force of only 40, which is where we've been sitting. That allows for 53 total police officers in the police department. I want to move that leadership role closer to the people who need it the most and to better serve the community. Right now, when you call and you ask to speak to a supervisor as a citizen in the city, they do not direct you to speak to a captain directly. A first-line supervisor almost always fields that call first and foremost. First-line supervisors, which are the sergeants of the department, also interact with patrol on a day-to-day basis. The way our department has been structured since we lost that 7th sergeant's position in 1996 was that our detective bureau very rarely, if ever, has a sergeant down there. They had a lieutenant instead acting as a sergeant, although they were not in the first-line supervisory role. I would love to see our department get to 7 sergeants again, lose some of the top command staff, and allow that sergeant to run a detective bureau when we get back to full staff. Now, I can assure you all that in the future, any changes that I make to the police department will only come after our staffing levels are adequate to serve the needs of the community, and that's by having officers on the road. In the past, I know those of you that are on council that were with council before, when my predecessor requested legislation, there were several other changes that were asked of you. I'm only asking for a one-for-one swap. So With that being said, everything's always comes down to dollars and cents as well, and it will save the city over $21,000 a year from here on forward. With that, the pay scales and that packet that I wrote for those that are present. I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel, and I'm not looking to completely restructure the police department. I see an opportunity to take some of that leadership. I know it sounds redundant at this point, but I really want to hammer it home so that you guys understand that I do not want to do away with any. I don't want us to have any less officers. I don't want us to have any lack of leadership. I just want to move the officers closer to where they're needed in leadership roles. And I think that getting rid of a captain and adding a sergeant will accomplish that. Are there any questions?
Councilman Sluse?
Thank you, Chief. You just said that, are there currently 4 lieutenants on shift? Or in the department?
Right now, the way that our department is set up is that we have 1 lieutenant assigned to each shift, and they're currently on the shift, and we have a 4th admin lieutenant. Prior to 1996, we never had a 4th lieutenant. The department was always designed to have 3 lieutenants attached to each shift, and through a series of lawsuits, there was a settlement that came into existence, and we gained that additional lieutenant. Well, now that we have that additional lieutenant, I don't see no need for an additional body at the top, at the command staff level. I'd love to get back to having that original 7th sergeant.
So in your plan, you plan to keep 4, or are you going to drop that down to 3?
No, I would like to just keep 4. I would like to keep 4 lieutenants.
Because you said 3 a little bit ago.
Oh, I apologize.
I just wanted to make sure.
I appreciate you pointing that out. So I'm looking at the legislation, and I'm trying to make sure that I can hit all the comparison and contrasting points from the previous request for legislation. I hope that this doesn't get mixed up in your minds as to what Chief Moser at the time can present, because it is different, far simpler. It's just changing one section, and I apologize. We will maintain to have 4 lieutenants at the police department.
Thank you.
Chief Saint, I just wanted to clarify, the chief's position that you want to eliminate, that's going to be eliminated through attrition, correct?
The captain's position.
Or captain's position, yeah, the chief's figured, yeah, the captain's position.
Yes, sir. So he, Captain Field right now is set to, well, he's not set, but he has let it be known that he anticipates retiring early in 2023. And so time is of the essence for me to try to ask council to remove that position, because in the event that it does not get removed and the ordinance doesn't get changed and there becomes a vacancy, civil service law says there must be, we only have so much time to then fill that vacancy. We're bound by law to do that.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Mr. Sneed?
This is a simple one, final clarification, please. 1 chief, 1 captain, 4 lieutenants, 7 sergeants, 43 patrol. Correct?
Do I have, so I have it listed right now in we're budgeted for 50 police officers total at the police department. And so one of the things that I think gets muddled is that with 44, when you have 44 patrol officers there, or 43, it puts us far above that number. We're not even budgeted for as many that are in the ordinance right now, currently. So what I'd like to see is I'd like to see at least a minimum 40 in the ordinance. That puts us still at 53 officers total as a police department with the legislation as I drew it up. So the legislation request that I put, I listed 40 officers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody off the committee that would like to ask a question? We have some time. Mr. Lewis?
Sorry, I'm going to follow up with what Mike said. So we are currently, by ordinance, at 43 patrol,
Correct.
and this would take the 40.
Correct, and unless I can get the support to keep 43, because I would love to see us have a 100-person police department. I just don't know that the budget would allow. I changed it to 40 based on what I had been told for the amount of officers we're budgeted for. And there was a little bit, I wish this was a little clearer in the legislation, because patrol officers, when I read patrol officers, I think of patrol total, a total amount of officers inside the police department that hold the rank of patrol or patrol officer. That doesn't count the command staff. So at 44 or at 43, and you add in addition to, or you add in all of the other, officers that hold a position of rank, it's going to put us, we're looking at 3, let's add another 3 on top of that. It actually puts us at 56. If I would be more than willing to change that to keep it at 43, if that's something that I could get support for.
If,
Like I said, our budgeting doesn't even actually support the ordinance.
if times weren't as they were, if you could find that many patrolmen that there would be a need for the 43, or you could utilize the 43.
Absolutely, and the reason why is because as times have changed, it's 2022. We absolutely unequivocally need school resource officers, and we have accommodated the elementaries, the middle, and the high school with a school resource officer. They're dedicated to those schools. Every time the school's open, we have an officer in those schools. And so what that has done is that took 3 officers that normally would have been on the road patrolling, serving the community, and it just reallocated them somewhere where they're still needed in the school. But I would absolutely love to keep 43 because I would love to keep more people on the road.
Anybody else? Anything else you'd like to add, Chief?
No, I think that I laid it out pretty clear, and I don't want to muddy the waters with backstories of why things have changed, but, in my proposal in the letter that I wrote up, I felt like it is important for department heads to constantly reevaluate themselves to what best suits the community and the department itself, and so every so often, this has changed. I've showed, or given examples of where the chief of police has come in front of council and requested changes to the staff, or to either to staffing levels or to the leadership roles of those in the department. This is one of those times where I looked at it and I said we can do better, we can provide better service to the community. I also, the last thing too is I don't forget where I came from. I don't forget that patrol is the backbone of the police department. I do not want to remove any officers from the road. In fact, I would take as many as council approves me to have. But I have full support from the Gold Unit also. I have every member that's currently in the Gold Unit, which are supervisors at the police department, and they all signed their names with letters of support for this change.
Thank you very much, Chief St. We'll be discussing this again in the work session tonight for the entire council. I'm sorry?
Can I ask another question?
No. Yes.
So just to be clear, we're throwing these numbers around. So what you're asking is just to move one captain to do away with the captain's position and add a sergeant's position this time, but keeping the same number of patrol at this time?
So the way I drew it up was, and I may have done this in error, only because, I'm going to be honest with you folks, this is all new to me. I'm learning the ropes. I had to come up here to Diane. How many times did I bother you? Too many. Just to make sure that I was on the right path and doing a proposal for legislation. If our current legislation says that we can have 43 officers, I would absolutely love to keep it as 43. I drew up the proposal as 40 because my math, that put us at 53 officers. And that allowed us to do almost everything that we needed to do and gave us some wiggle room within a couple extra officers for retirement or for those that are sick or for any officers that go out on medical, temporary medical leave status. But if I could, I would gladly change it to 43 in a heartbeat and keep it at 43 if you guys allow that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Switz. Does anybody on the committee have a problem with changing this to 43? Anybody on council have a problem with us changing this to 43? Mr. Lewis?
My preference would be to not adjust the patrolman. That's a separate issue. It muddies the waters of what he's attempting. So I would say I would prefer to leave it at 43 and let's just address the change of reduction in captain and sergeant.
The legislation's written for patrol officers of 40. That's why I want to change it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, like put it back to
Okay.
3 in the legislation. So if that needs to be addressed, we can address that as a separate issue.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Chief. I appreciate your service, and we're adjourned.
I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you.